So you've got New World, but where do you start? How do you not get overwhelmed? Well, in this video, I'm going to go through and show you the top things you need to know to hit the ground running. This is tips and tricks and just things that you must know mechanic wise to just make sure that your first playthrough is as good as it can be. I'm Dan, this is Unified Gaming, and we're going to jump straight in. Now, you've probably noticed already that New World does not have classes. When you make your character, you get presented with weapon options and just attributes. And how on earth do you become a wizard? How do you become an archer or maybe a swordsman? And well, New World does this in a very novel way. It works on allowing you to pick the weapons that determines your playstyle. So this means that you can mix and match and make any class or combination that you see fit. You can always equip up to 2 weapons at a time, and inside every weapon there are active abilities, which are square ones, and there are passives, which are all the circle ones. Some of these passives buff the whole weapon line, some of them buff the specific skills. I'm not going to go through all of them, but what I want to show you right now is how do you get the weapons of your choice really quick, because I found that really hard. So, what do you do? Well, as you play the game, rather than trying to stress about trying to craft it and hunt it down or just hope that RNG is on your side, simply progress through the main story, Monarch's Bluffs. You start at the Watch Tower. As you progress up, you will end up in the town. Now this will start as a hamlet, but if you play on a server that's a bit busy or you play a bit later than others, it might be a higher level, so you might say a different name here. But as you go to here, you are wanting to look for the trading post. The trading post is an incredibly useful place. It has this kind of icon on it. It's a raven that holds a coin. And when you get here, you can buy items that other players are selling. And this is probably, if not the quickest way to get a weapon of your choice early on. It's not always the cheapest way, but it's really fast. So let's see, can we get a magic weapon? Give you a life staff, they're quite tricky early on. They cost 1 gold. So 1 gold, I can get myself a life staff straight away. Fire staffs. Fire staffs are available. Ice gauntlets are available, as you can see. These are a bit more expensive, but they're still available. And you can farm this gold in probably about half an hour, even less than that if you're really focused. So you can get this quite quick, and it's a lot faster than just hoping for RNG. And this is true for all the weapon types. So if you're really after a really hard to get item, I would come here as quick as you can to get it, so that way you can just level up the weapon that you want. And this is also true for things like accessories. So I found amulets were really hard to get, but actually I was able to get some really early on just by buying one. So this made my playthrough on the beta so much easier. So that's like one of the top tips, that if you are new to the game and you want to play with a different weapon type, or you know exactly what you want, get to the trading post as quick as you can and see what's available. It might save you a lot of time. As you're exploring the wilds of New World, you will come across many things you can harvest, from bushes to trees to rocks to things you can just pick up. Most of this will require a tool. When you do explore the wilderness though, you can be attacked from animals and enemies, so just be mindful that when you're gathering, things will try and kill you. And I am letting it attack me to show you how we can use this to help solve these issues. As you'd expect, bushes will give you wood and sometimes bait. Boulders will give you mainly stone. If you are harvesting trees, you'll get wood. It is pretty intuitive in all honesty. Animals will yield meat and hides, and you can get fire bits from plants. In order to harvest these resources, you will need the right tool to do so. With all of this stuff in mind, you can then take these things to a crafting station or your campsite and craft things to help you out. If you don't have a campsite, just that little bit of chopping a tree down, picking up some flint can make our very own campsite. And what's a campsite, you wonder? Well, a campsite is basically a mobile spawn point that you can use to also heal yourself as well. So even if you don't die, you can just come back, rest up, get some free health. So as I took some damage earlier, I'm out of potions, I don't have my life staff equipped. Simply rest, I can recover my health, and I'm good to go back to the fight. So even if you don't want to gather much, just getting the basic stuff for this ability alone, incredibly helpful. So what do you need to actually just gather the stuff? Well, you need to get access to the sickle, the skinning knife, the logging axe, and the pickaxe. All of these are unlocked as you play the game. They're easy to get, so there's no excuse not to have them. As soon as you get to a craft station or your campsite, you can make all the tools here, and this is the first thing I'd suggest doing, so that way if you come across things you might need, you can just harvest it. And if you can't harvest it just yet, or at least you've identified that's something you could come back to later on. One thing to note is in the weapons skill line and the character sheet, you can go to trade skills. And there's a whole section in gathering where you can use this to actually increase how fast you harvest items, which really helps, and increase the tool quality that you can use. Better tools, faster gathering rates, extra perks such as higher resource gain, all that stuff. So really, really useful. Now, if you're like me and you like, looking behind rocks, trying to find that secret chest, New World actually has a really cool looting system. And it's these little things here. They're called supply caches or chests, but you see them around. They're very similar appearance. They kind of glow white, as you can see. You go up to them and push E, and it will then lose it. These will then give you random items, and these will respawn as well. So they can regenerate, which means you can go and just use them again and again and again. So it's a really great way just to try and get items. And do look around, they are hidden around, as you can see. But enemies can be in the way, so you might need to take them out first. But by doing this, you can get weapons. I've got a hatchet just there and a waterlogged hat. Not great stuff, but if you're new to the game and you're after some items, it's a really good way just to get free stuff. Now, you've been out exploring all day. You've killed a few things, got some cool items, but you're running low on space. If you're like me, you can see I'm full of stuff all the time, and it's terrible. So what do you do with it? Well, New World has a solution for that, and that's the storage shed. The storage shed allows you to go up to it and store items. You can deposit anything you like. Now, I would recommend that you deposit mainly craft materials. That's the most useful thing to deposit. And these weapons and stuff you can actually use in other ways, which we'll get to in just a moment. But you simply drag and drop. Now, there is a limit to it, and it has 1000 weight, so you can't go over that. And please bear in mind that as of live, so this is the beta, it could change, but it's only 2 weeks before launch, so it might not. You can deposit in any of these, but you can only view what's in other ones. So if I want to view what's in Windsward, I can only view it. I can't access the items if there were any in there, which is just something to bear in mind, that if you put all of your great stuff in the first one and you go to another region, you can't access what you need, which can be an issue. And that storage weight is also per region. So you might find that actually you want to put all of one region just for craft materials. That's what I'm going to do going forward. Now, I did mention about weapons and what do you do with those, because they weigh an awful lot. This axe here, it's got a weight of 8, and well, you can only hold 200, so it's quite heavy. You have a few options. If you hover over it, it will come with repair, salvage, equip, discard, lock. Now, I personally found that some of the best uses for this early on is actually salvage. So if you hold shift and push S, for example, so you can salvage it nice and quickly. So S and click salvage. You get a repair part and some gold. It's very little gold, it's very little repair parts, but you need these repair parts to repair broken items. So I can't use this because it's just broken, but because I've got repair parts down here from breaking items, I can repair this back to full durability. And this happens to your armor, your gear, your everything you use. So don't always store the items that you don't want in that storage place, because you might need to actually break them down. The other thing to remember as well is that if you go to any of the traders, you can sell the items on the market at the trading post. So if you happen to get a really good item, for example, this life staff, it's pretty decent, especially early on. I could sell this, make some profit, get way more than I would by just salvaging it. but I might need to repair it to full to make it attractive to buy. It can't be bound, so you just need to kind of factor in that, do you want to sell it or just break it down? But that's how I deal with those extra weapons and armors you don't need. When you're out and you're exploring and you get kind of stuck really far away, as you can see, you can simply go to the map, go to a settlement that you have an inn at, and I can teleport all the way from here to here. It doesn't seem far, but honestly it is huge. This is a good 5-10 minute walk, just going this distance. Whereas I can just go recall to the inn, he'll teleport me there. This does have a 1 hour cooldown, but this is quite good if you want to just teleport back and forward to places to drop quests off, but use it sparingly. Now, one really important part on New World is the territory system. This little snippet is not an in-depth guide to how does it work, but just the key things to know from day one, which this guide is all about. So, in short, the map is broken into territories, different regions. Inside each region, you will find a settlement, a fort, and some other things to do. What you need to worry about is the territory standings. To access this, you open the map, and on the left is territory standings. Here you can get free buffs that will help your character in-game just by being in an area. The more time that you spend in that area, the higher it goes up, the more buffs you get, and so on and so on. Pretty useful. You can then pick different passives that you can have. I personally like leaning towards the ones that help the gameplay, so XP gain or gathering speed, because these will still help endgame, so these are still useful buffs to have, but you just will spend a lot of time to get it max level. Now, I can't stress this enough, guys, but the territory buffs will really impact the game from the start to the end, and you need to decide what the buff will do for you. Some buffs will be incredibly powerful as you level up, particularly the XP ones, but when you're max level, what do they do? At present, you cannot reset them. So what I would suggest is look at it like this. When you have the 3 options or 4, depending on level and if you have a house, decide for yourself, how will this help me now and at level 60? If at level 60 the XP is not going to help you, but you have a storage option, that's going to be incredibly helpful. And it might be worth sacrificing that little buff option in the short term to have that extra use when you're end game, and that's what I would suggest. The other thing to note as well, which we're not going to go into massive detail, is territories can be claimed by factions, and if your faction owns the territory, you get even more perks and benefits. If you own the fort, you get things like increased gather rates, bonus XP. If you own towns, you get reductions to how much trading costs and how much it costs to repair and sell stuff. You can also upgrade stations to get better craft stations to make better items. So there are a lot of benefits to being part of a faction that owns a territory. If you want to join a faction, as you play the main game, you'll come to Monarch's Bluffs Hamlet. This will change depending on who owns it and how big it is. But here you'll do the main story and you get to join one of these factions, and you can pick one that you want. There's no difference between them. You get access to all the same items as of the beta, so don't stress if you go, oh, I want to be that one because I want magic items. You get all of it. The one thing to note, however, is that if you make a mistake, you can change it. So don't stress, that it does have a 3-month cooldown roughly. That may change when the game launches. And the other thing to note is that you can't open up on people of the same alliance. But when you're out in the open world and you are flagged for PvP, that's an option by the way, you can then open up for other flagged players in other alliances. But that's just the main thing to know. In short, do quests, do PvP stuff, you'll gain a territory for your alliance, and likewise you can attack others if they got an area that you really want. So that's kind of the territory system in a nutshell. Now, I want to share some useful kind of settings that would just make life a little bit easier if you're just starting out. And maybe you might know these already, but there might be a few that you just don't, so do stick around. Now, in the key binding section, there's this option here, swap active weapons, and it's off for some reason. If you click this and set this to your weapon slot 1, so just the 1, which is the normal swap to weapon 1, when you push this, it just alternates between the 2 weapons. Now, this was really helpful for me because I no longer need to keep pushing 1 or 2, because if I'm on 2 and I push it, I'm back on 1. There's only 2 options. So I don't know why that's actually a thing. So that was a really helpful option there. As you go down, there's also toggle run walk. So you can have, if you want to turn this on and off, that's quite useful. But they're the main ones there. You can also ping things as well for other players. So this is quite useful. Now, I personally haven't used this yet, but if you have maybe an MMO mouse, you might want to use some of these if you don't use the voice chat. You then also have in preferences, and this is where it's really helpful. In the bandwidth mode, this helps you receive more data, which basically means you get you can just allow more information to come to you, which can help with latency. So if you have higher latency, just put this on high, it can help. And the enable analytics reporting, this can also cause some latency issues from my testing. Now, this is beta, it could change, but it doesn't hurt to just turn it off, see if you get just a latency improvement. And how do you check all that stuff? Well, there are actually options for that in visuals. As you scroll down, there's actually a button for show FPS, which also includes latency as well. So it will tell you kind of what your FPS, what's your latency like, so it's quite useful. I'd also suggest if you have a VSync monitor to put that on, it does help. And it doesn't really make sense to go above it, but unfortunately they don't cap it as 144 Hz. So if you have a high refresh monitor like mine, then you need to have this uncapped. One thing I found that was really helpful is in the social and in the communications, you can turn the chat down to 0. I find the chat rather invasive and it fades out really fast with how I've set it up. But if you leave it on default, it does take some time. It's normally set on 20, which doesn't sound like a long time, but I'll show you the difference and you can see the difference for yourself. So this is 20, it's still there, still there, still there. It doesn't go away for ages. Whereas if you did it my way, you can literally turn it off basically. Go, I don't want the chat, don't want the chat. And if you want to see it, you just push the enter key to type and the chat like appears up here still. So it still comes in. It just helps you kind of get rid of it a bit quicker, especially in a busy region. That said, you can filter the chat and put on just area chat or faction chat, for example. So you don't always need to have like all these options be bombarded. Another useful setting that I found personally is in the visuals. When you go to the video quality, this game for some reason, the shadows really hurt performance. Like shadows normally on most games, but this game's really, really extreme. So if you are having some FPS issues, this is the one that you can drop probably down to low with very little image quality loss, but a big FPS boost. So if I put my FPS on, I have 140 odd, put this down to low, and it'll go up. If I put this into very high though, it drops down to 90, 80, 90. So that's like a 40 FPS loss. So I found that medium was kind of a good sweet spot. It wasn't as bad as low, but it was just a nice way to get a big FPS boost. And there we go guys, there are some of my tips for starting New World as a day one player. Just things to know mechanic wise or just extra features that aren't really explained. I hope you found this helpful. I'd love to know what you think. What was your favourite tip? If there was one tip you could add, what would it be? Let me know down below. And if you like what I do here, then you can obviously jump into my Discord and chat with me there. Details are all in the description, or you can support myself on Patreon. As I said, it's all down below. But I've been Dan, this is Unified Gaming, and I'll catch you in the next video. Take care, thanks for watching, and bye!